Have you ever been told, eat this, eat that? Have you ever been told, try this diet, try that diet? It's worked for me, it should work for you. Well, today we're going to dive right into that. We're going to talk about why diets work and why diets don't work. Good calories versus bad calories. Stay tuned for the rest of the video. I'm Jacob Lilly with Enhanced Chiropractic Relief, and welcome back to another video talking about weight loss. Number one thing, good calories or bad calories? Is there such a thing? This is completely false. Now, depending on how you look at it, calories in general, your body doesn't matter if something is a good calorie or a bad calorie. The only reason why there's such a thing as a good calorie or a bad calorie is the way our minds kind of look on things. So, for example, people might feel a little bit guilty when they're eating something that they think is unhealthy and they think, oh, these are bad calories. Or they might be eating something that they think might be healthy and they're like, oh, these are good calories. I can afford to eat these because they're good. Now, metabolically speaking, our body does not care if we're consuming these bad calories or these good calories. Now, the only thing the body is worried about is consuming calories. We need these calories in our body to help function appropriately. Cellular functions, hormone functions, other cellular activities inside of our body. Our body doesn't care what we're consuming. It's going to take the micro and macronutrients in what we consume and use it in some particular way, some way or form. So that includes your proteins, your carbs, your fats, your vitamins, your minerals, all that stuff. Your body's going to take that and reuse it into some particular form of energy that will help sustain us. So in terms of good calories and bad calories, there is no such thing. However, there is a caveat to that. So good calories, there are certain things that can be calorically better than something that isn't. For example, I like to give this example pretty often to a lot of my patients that I see in my office, which is alcohol. Alcohol can have the same caloric intake or the caloric number. So let's say like a couple shots of vodka or tequila, whatever it is that you like, is let's say about 100 calories. Or let's go with like a light beer, for example. A light beer is around like 60 to 100 calories, right? As opposed to something like a serving or 2 servings of carrots or even like celery or something like that, some sort of, healthy vegetable. When we compare the two calorically, they're going to yield the same amount of calories. So let's say 80 calorie light beer, 80 calories worth of carrots and other vegetables. If you consume it, that's 160 calories if you combine the two. Now, the difference with that is that the carrots and the celery and the healthier calories are going to provide a lot more nutrients to our body. So, for example, they're going to provide our micronutrients, a few macronutrients, some carbohydrates, some proteins, although maybe very little, but it is something that our body is going to consume and use, including a lot of fiber, as opposed to alcohol, where it's a lot of just carbohydrates and a lot of empty calories, meaning you're not going to get a lot of nutrients out of that beverage or out of that particular food. In this case, we're talking about alcohol. So your body will consume the calories and it will burn the calories, but there's a lot of sugar alcohols that, when you break it down and whatnot, that kind of float in our body and just don't really serve too much of a positive purpose in our body. So that's something to kind of think about when thinking about good calories or bad calories. There is no such thing. It's more about how it reacts in our body and how it can serve our body to keep it functioning correctly. In this case, alcohol would have a very detrimental effect to the liver, damaging the liver as well as disrupting the gut microbiome, which is very important in immune function, as well as damaging the brain cells, as opposed to the other side, where we're consuming the same amount of calories, but it's a more nutritious food, a little bit healthier. That's going to better serve us for our needs as overall health. Talking strictly about weight loss, it's important to understand that weight loss is just a small portion of this overall health paradigm. So we should aim to being healthy first before even thinking about losing any type of weight. Another thing that I want to discuss is there's been some recent demonization of carbohydrates as a fuel source for our body. I don't want to put any blame on anything, but it seems like with this kind of resurgence of the ketogenic diet in recent times, where people think like, okay, fats, I need to eat a bunch of fats and go on keto to lose a bunch of weight. And if I'm on keto, I can't be on carbohydrates because it takes me out of ketosis and yada, 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 yada. Now, yes, that can be true. However, carbs are not the the enemy here. The enemy to weight loss is always, always, always going to be overconsumption. If you go back and refer back to the first video, which I'll put a link here in the video so you can click on and watch, there's 3 principles to that. Is the number 1 principle is you need to understand being in a calorie deficit for a period of time to lose weight. Now, you can be on the ketogenic diet, you can be on a vegan diet, you can be on a vegetarian diet, pescatarian, zone diet, whatever diet that you choose, as long as you're following the basic fundamental principles of this energy balance of calories in versus calories out. If you're in that deficit, then you will lose weight. No doubt about it. Now, there is several complicating factors, such as your age, if you're going through menopause and things like that, but just for the general sake of the argument, the longer you are and the consistency of you being in a calorie deficit, the easier you'll be able to lose weight, essentially, because you're burning and you're using a lot more energy than you're intaking. So again, the diet itself does not matter. It's an overconsumption problem. If we can limit what we're consuming, we should theoretically lose weight. So that kind of brushed upon why diets do work. Now let's talk about why diets don't work. Now, typically diets don't work because people are too restricted. That's usually number 1. Try the ketogenic diet, for example. Ketogenic diet is very, very different than what most people are used to. So, they eat a lot of high fat, a lot of proteins, maybe they're getting into liver meats and things like, organ meats and things like that. That is drastically different than what we eat on a day-to-day basis. So when you go on this ketogenic diet, oftentimes it's very, very too restrictive for most people. And that becomes a problem because when things are a little bit too restrictive, then they feel like there's no wiggle room, and then they're more susceptible to kind of breaking out of that ketosis or that ketogenic state. Now, this is a problem because when something is too restrictive and they break out of this, then it's more damaging to how you view and perceive weight loss, because then you're going to think, okay, the ketogenic diet doesn't work. Once you kind of start going down that path, this is where yo-yo dieting starts to come into play, where you'll lose a couple pounds on keto, you'll kind of have a bad week or something comes up and you get off of it for some reason and you gain those few pounds. Maybe you gain a little bit more pounds because of it, because now you're just stress eating, you're eating cake and carbohydrates and things like that, or you weren't eating any carbs before because you're on the ketogenic diet. You kind of swell up because the carbohydrates reserve a lot of water, so now you gained a lot of water weight in the process as well. That further discourages you, and then you never try the ketogenic diet again. You try something else. You say, I'm going to go vegetarian and stop eating meat. And then you lose a couple pounds, and then you say, oh my God, I just want a burger or pizza or something like that. And then you gain those pounds, and same thing. You gain a little bit of water weight in the process, and you're just kind of going through this fluctuating process. That is a bigger problem because, one, you're not consistent, and that's the second part to why diets don't work, is you're not consistent. So, one, being you're too restrictive, so you break out of these habits. Number 2 is you are not consistent, and you go through this period of yo-yo dieting, and then you get discouraged. That has further implications because now you're just going to lose that self-esteem, you're going to lose that confidence, you're not going to believe in your ability to lose weight. When a lot of the times people break out of this, it's not because they're doing anything wrong necessarily. It's just because that they're not tackling the right problem per se. They're tackling a dietary issue that is wrong. They're not tackling the big issue, which is the overconsumption problem. You can lose weight on keto, but you can also gain weight on keto. You can lose weight on a vegetarian diet, but you can also gain a lot of weight on a vegetarian diet. It's a problem of overconsumption that needs to be addressed, not so much what you're eating in particular. If it's something that you think you can do, however, and you can stay consistent and you can be disciplined with it, then by all means go ahead. However, if it's a little bit too restrictive, or you feel like you're not going to be disciplined enough, where you're going to cheat on weekends, or you're going to go out and drink on weekends or party, and you just want to have that freedom and that flexibility, which is totally fine, maybe trying one of these diets isn't the best idea for you. Instead, we can work on something a little bit different, which is, again, addressing the overconsumption problem. So hopefully that kind of summarizes everything that we talked about in terms of why diets don't work, why some diets do work, as well as is there such thing as good calories or bad calories. They all kind of mesh together. Don't be too restrictive with yourself, however, be disciplined. And number two, always stay consistent. So if you're going to choose a particular diet, please stick with it at least for 3 to 6 months and then see how that progress is. If you don't think you can do a certain diet for at least 3 months, I would recommend not doing that. Just stick to a more flexible diet, maybe do similar to what you're doing, but just be a little bit more health conscious. And again, you need to understand how many calories that you're intaking versus how much you're giving out, or what's your output. So if you are always going to be in a surplus where you're eating too much, more than what you're burning, you're not going to lose any weight. Simple as that. So again, refer to my first video where I talk about the fundamentals of weight loss because that's going to be carried over into every other video coming forth. If you guys have any questions, hopefully I answered all of them in this video. Please leave a comment below. Remember to subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. See you guys.